Welcome to Sparks of History, where Jewish history and world history meet. We are extremely pleased to have with us today Rabbi Dr. Aaron Adler. Rabbi Adler earned his BA and MA from Yeshiva University, as well as his rabbinic ordination from YU's Rabbi Elchanan Theological Seminary. Additionally, Rabbi Adler holds a PhD in Talmud from Bar-Ilan University. Rabbi Adler has served as a synagogue communal rabbi in locations such as Long Island City, Bersheva, Ramot, Zurich, and Katamon, Jerusalem. Rabbi Adler is also the founding Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Bnei Akiva near Tamid in Chashmonaim, Israel. Rabbi Adler is a popular lecturer, author, and educator, and Rabbi Adler was a student and assistant / quote-unquote driver to HaGaon Rav Yosef ber Halevi Soloveitchik, the Rav. And today we will be discussing Rabbi Adler's absolutely fascinating and really just, it's one of those books that you read not just once, but my kids kept saying, I said, Abba, why do you have this book again and again and again? It's such a thin book. I said, you can read this over and over, and 70 conversations in transit with HaGaon HaRav Joseph B. Soloveitchik, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And Rabbi Adler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Lieberman, and for this invite to talk about the book, which was written 3 years ago and published 2 years ago in 2021. It was my COVID project. We were locked up for 2 months, and I decided that the time has come to put to writing some of these wonderful conversations that I had the Rav in the 1970s, when indeed I served as his personal driver in New York City for 3 years.
One of the benefits of COVID. So it was always good from everything. Just to get started, obviously the Rav Soloveitchik commuted for many years from Boston to New York, which of course is the theme of the Sefer, the book, the conversations that Rabbi Adler had while he picked up the Rav and brought him to Yeshiva University. Did Rav Soloveitchik's position on reciting the blessing, Birkat HaGomel, giving thanks for air travel, stem from an objective reason or his subjective feelings of the traveler?
Okay, for starters, I would tell you that the Rav who flew every single week did not bench Gomel, did not say the bracha of Gomel after each flight. He actually voiced this several times in Shiurim, that he believed that the four indications in the Gemara, in Masechet Brachot, of those who are advised, and I use the word advised, to say the bracha of Gomel. The Gemara does not say obligatory. The Gemara does not say arba'a chayavim lehodot. The Gemara says arba'a tzrichim lehodot. Are strongly advised to say the bracha of Gomel, which is in place of a Thanksgiving sacrifice from the days of the Beit HaMikdash. The Gemara cites four scenarios, and one includes travel on the high seas. It also includes travel in the desert. It includes a seriously ill person who recuperated, and a person who was in prison and was freed. The Rav was of the opinion that all four scenarios were situations of life-threatening situations. Each one, which he said, if a person has a cold and after a few days of chicken soup and tea, feels better, that does not require Gomel. The Rav felt that only somebody who was hospitalized or in serious condition at home that could have possibly developed into a life-threatening situation, there was room for Gomel, and there was also room for some subjective fluctuation, because the Gemara says tzrichim. Sorech means a need. So you might have two people in identical situations where one person feels a great need to thank God that he got out of this situation. The other person said, well, it was okay, it wasn't such a bad thing after all, and so on. And each one is in a situation where you can be comfortable with. With regard to air travel, here becomes a discussion, because Rav Moshe Feinstein believed that there's no major difference between traveling over the high seas, whether the boat is in the water or you're 30,000 feet up in the air. You're traveling the high seas. Whereas the Rav felt that this has to be measured in terms of the danger zone. There's no question about the fact that in the days of the Gemara, in the days of the Middle Ages, travel in the high sea was a tremendous, dangerous situation. It was life-threatening. Many people never made it to the other side. Boats sank and capsized because of severe weather conditions. There were pirates on the high seas. The Rambam's brother went down in the Indian Ocean with all his wares. This is something that was known, and there's no question that this was dangerous, to the extent that one of the authors of the Tosfot, Rabbeinu Chaim Cohen, in Masechet Ketubot says that today we don't really have an obligation to move to Eretz Yisrael because it's a dangerous move. This was said in France in the 13th century. And if somebody waves that view today and says, well, I really can't leave New York or Golders Green or South Africa because, flying is dangerous, let the record stand clearly that it is 4,000 times more dangerous to get into a car and drive than fly a plane today, statistically, 4,000 times more dangerous. And therefore, the Rav believed that in a routine flight situation, there's no need for gomel at all. But if, something happens to the plane, God forbid a crash and you survive, or as it happened in the movie Sully, where I remember the case in 2009 where the captain put the plane down in the Hudson River after both engines were hit by birds, you certainly have to say gomel after that kind of situation, but not a routine flight that everything is just fine. That was his opinion.
And the Rav wouldn't have distinguished between domestic flights and international flights. The same principle applies.
Yeah, you see, that distinction between domestic and international was voiced by Rav Waldenberg, Zichronon Livracha, the author of the Tzitz Eliezer, who said that he thought that the dangers in air travel was hijacking, and the hijackings in his day were all international flights. Of course, unfortunately, 9/11 put an end to that idea because all 4 flights were domestic flights, and the tragic results are readily obvious. So it has nothing to do with whether being oversea per se. It has to do with how you measure up a flight. Now, I know some people who have suffer from fear of flying, and sometimes because of need, they have to fly, and they're just nervous the entire flight. And thank God the plane landed, and if they want to get up and say gomel, go right ahead. The Rav felt, like Shechiyanu, gomel is a type of bracha that if you really, really mean it, it cannot be a bracha in vain. If you're serious about this. My sister lives in Chashmonaim, and there are many, many people who work in high tech and would go to the States in Monday and come back on Friday. And on Shabbat, by Shvi, by laning, by reading of the Torah, you'd have about 20, 30 people lining up to say gomel. The rabbi put an end to it. And he said one guy can say gomel and everybody can say amen. And, forget it. You can't have 30 people saying gomel for this. So my sister coined the phrase, the Moadon HaGomel HaMatmid, that the people, it's their gomel club. Every single week. And the truth is, would every week a person run to Beit HaMikdash to offer a korban todah, a thanksgiving offering? For sure not. So we should not waste the opportunity and make it into a routine type of bracha. It should be used for should be reserved for special occasions.